Hi everybody, this is Oksana, and today I have a really fun, simple project for you. It's very beginner friendly. We're just using a little copper washer and one piece of wire to make these adorable little rings. And if you wanted to make it a little bit, do a little something extra, you can add a little bead here, just like on this one. I'll show you that as well. So if you end up liking this video, I hope you'll hit the thumbs up down below and consider subscribing if you're not already subscribed. And if you hit the notification bell, you'll be notified of when I make new videos, which is every weekend. So let's go ahead and get started making these rings. So I'm just starting out with a copper washer. This is a little kit that I got on eBay. It looks like this. There's just assorted sizes, and I'm going to use the smallest one, which is 5 by 9 by 1. And what that means is the bigger circle is 9 millimeters and the smaller one is 5, and it's 1 millimeter thick. And the first thing to do is to hammer it for some texture. This is optional. Only if you want to give it some texture do you have to do this. So if you want to do this, you need an iron block and a chasing hammer, and you're going to use the rounded side, and you would put this down on the floor, and you would hit one side of the washer and then just hold the other side. So hopefully you can see it's starting. There we go. It's starting to get some texture there. So then I would just turn it and I would hold another part of it, and I would hammer what I haven't hammered yet. And then by doing that, eventually your washer would look textured like this one here. Now we're going to need one piece of 18 gauge copper wire. This is round, dead soft copper wire. 18 gauge works best because it's sturdy. I would recommend it over 20 gauge, but feel free to use an even thicker gauge if you want to go up from 18 to like 16 or something. That would be fine too. But my piece here is 2 1/4 inches long, and this we'll see what size ring this makes. I think it's gonna make about a 7 7.5, and then you can change the size of your wire accordingly. Unfortunately, there isn't like a set rule because we're going to hammer this, and when you hammer it, it gets a little bigger, and everyone's going to kind of hammer it naturally just a little bit differently, so it's hard to predict the exact size that your ring will end up. So I just recommend, they're just so quick and easy to make, just making several rings, and then you'll get kind of an assortment of sizes. So when you cut yourself this piece of wire, make sure that you use this flat side of your cutters on each end when you cut it initially, because this will ensure that the end is nice and flat, and so when we hammer it, it's not gonna have like a point to it, it's just gonna have a flat edge. So for hammering this wire, we're going to use this side of our chasing hammer, and we're just going to gently tap it. We're not going to go crazy. It's going to flatten it just a little bit, but it'll make it stronger, but you don't want to just completely flatten the wire. You just want to give it a little bit of strength and just kind of gently tap it all the way across, and then, hold this end and tap and across this, go across the other direction. So I'll do that real quick. All right, so after you've done that, it might look a little bit flatter. It might have a little bit of texture on the wire as well from you doing that, and it might start to kind of curve a little bit, so you just want to fix the curve and keep it nice and straight. And what you want to do next is we're going to hammer just the end of this wire, and we do want to flatten this. So I'll show you how flat I get mine, but you just want the very end tip of this to be flatter then the rest, and do that on the other side as well. So I'll start with this side. All right, so I finished that, and you can see it's looking wider and flatter here on this end than the rest of the wire. So you just want to do that on both ends. All right, so after you've done that and you have two flat ends here, you want to hold it like this with the flat part of it facing you versus like this with the edge of it, you know, like this versus this. So hold it like this, and we're gonna start bending it around a ring mandrel. So I'm gonna put it around a size 7, but we can always adjust to see depending on the size that it's working out to be. So I'm gonna bend it like this, and then I'm gonna bring it back around towards me. And I'm just gonna bend it until the little tips meet up like this. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take my pliers and I'm gonna go a little bit down. I'll measure for you how much I went down. I think I would guess it's about 5 millimeters. And I'm gonna put a bend. Sorry, that one was a little longer than the other one. I'm trying to get them to be exactly the same, but I'm putting a bend into both ends like this. Just a bend with my pliers. And let me measure that for you. Yeah, so about 5 millimeters. You don't have to be super precise, but this is just for people that like measurements. I measured that. So once you have that, you take your ring, you bring these two little ends together, and the textured side facing you, you put your washer onto those little spikes that are sticking up. Now it's hard to get them super precise, and if you look closely, one of mine is a little bit taller, so I'm just gonna attempt to fix that by trimming off just the teeniest little bit to try to get them to be really even. All right, so once they're even looking, we are going to take one at a time, and we're gonna grab it, and we are gonna turn it in this direction. Then we're gonna grab the other one, and we're just gonna turn it in this direction. And now this is what is happening. So then you want to take the very tip of it, and you want to curve it down into itself like this. So it forms like a loop, and then we're going to close the loop, and what's going to happen is the wire end is going to be facing into the ring band, so you're not going to have a piece of wire sticking out or anything. So now we're just going to do that on this end. I'm just going to push this washer down a little bit so I can get in there, grab that little end, and I'm just going to turn that little end down just like I did on the other side to form a loop, and I'm going to close that loop up. The first thing that I would do is I would put your ring on your ring mandrel just to reshape it a little bit, because we've been working with it, so it could have become slightly like an oval shape from us messing around and bending it. So I'm just gonna kind of reshape it, make sure it's nice and round. So it worked out to about a size 7 ring. So keep that in mind. 2¼ inch wire is about a size 7. Again, it might be a little bit different for you depending on how much you hammered the band. So now your ring is pretty much done. If you want it to be kind of just a basic little ring like this, which I think looks really, really cute, and I personally like it, but I'm going to show you some options here on how to spruce this up and make it a little fancier if you wanted to. And here's a finished ring that is just a basic washer with nothing else. You can see what it looks like with the texture once it's oxidized. I think that it really helps the texture come out and it looks really nice. This is my non-oxidized one that I had just made. So one option you have is to add a bead or several beads, and that's what I'm going to be doing. Just look through your stash of beads to see what fits best. For me, sorry, I know you can't see it, there we go. This little round bead kind of fits best. It's hard to fit things in here perfectly because the little wires that are on the side make the hole a little more narrow. But this bead seems to fit really well. You can use a copper bead as well. This is just a little clear pink shiny glass bead. Or alternatively, you can use several beads. So I have these tiny little seed beads, and if I use 3 of them, they fit perfectly like this. Actually, I think this is what I'm going to do in this video because I think this looks really cool. So I'm going to do this, but yeah, the little pink bead would be another option. And before I do this, I want to show you another option that is really cool that unfortunately I can't do with my ring because you need a 28 size wire, and I don't have a 28 size bare copper. I only have this one, so if I were to oxidize my ring, this is enameled copper, so it would stay this color, but the rest of my ring would oxidize, so it wouldn't match. But I'll show you what to do if you have the right wire. So if I had this size wire and bare copper, then everything would match and I could do it. So I don't know if I said already, but this needs to be 28. I've tried it with 26 and it just doesn't work as well. 28 works so much better. So it has to be a really thin wire. So I was playing around with these little seed beads, and I've seen a lot of flowers lately, little seed bead flowers. My daughter loves jewelry and she'll point it out when we go into stores together. There's a lot of cute little seed bead like bracelets and necklaces, and even I saw a ring, and that inspired me to figure out how to make little seed bead flowers. And there's like a million tutorials out there how to make a seed bead flower, so I'll just show you real quick. But if you need more instruction, you can just look it up. There's so much out there already. So the way that I would do it with 28 gauge wires, I would put 3 little seed beads of one color, and then I would put a different color for the middle. And by the way, these are size 11 glass seed beads. And then I would take my wire, and in the same direction as the other end of the wire, I would just put it through the very last of the silver colored seed beads, because that's like my flower petals are that color, and this dark one is the center. So I'm putting it through like this, same direction. And you just pull that through. And after you've pulled it through, starts to look like this, like 3 little beads. And then I would take 2 more of the silver colored seed beads, and I would slide them on that same wire that I just put through. And once you slide them down, here they are, they're just coming down like this, and then you take this same wire and you put it through this silver bead here, like this. And then once you pull on that, it forms a cute little flower. And if I take my little ring here and I put my flower on here, I think that would look really nice. And you could just attach it by wrapping these wires around. I'll show you how to attach just a single bead. So this would attach in the same exact way. All right, so I have, this is dead soft copper. This is 26 gauge, which is the thinnest one that I have. And it's from Rio Grande. I'm just doing silver, black, silver for 3 little beads like this. I can show you the little spool here of my wire. This is my 26 gauge wire. And this is what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna line them up like that. They fit perfectly in this little gap there. And I'm just gonna take this wire and I'm gonna wrap. So I'm gonna be wrapping upwards. So this wire is here on top. Hopefully, there we go. You can see the separation. See, it's on top and not on the bottom. So I'm going to pull that through like this. You can kind of press on it a little bit, make it tighter. And now for the other side, so we're going to flip it over. And this one is also going to be on top. So through this top little hole is where we're going to put it through. Oops, one of the beads fell. All right. And I'm just going to press on that. Going to tighten that up so my wires are together on both sides, because there's a little bit of a gap there. Okay, like this. And so now we're going to go back to the original side, but it doesn't matter which side you do first, really. Like now that we've attached them and the beads are not going to fall off, we're just going to finish off each side. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this wire, we are going to feed it through the ring itself, and we're just going to pull it through the other side here like this. Here's the underside of the ring, and so here on the underside of the ring we're just going to press down on it, and we are going to feed it through that little gap right there that is right next to the washer. That's how we're going to hide our wire end. So I've pulled it through that little gap there, and now I'm just gonna put it through the middle again, and now I'm gonna cut myself a little tiny wire end. And I'm going to try to tuck that little wire end in there as well, in that little gap. And by doing that, I'm going to be hiding my little wire end. Sorry, I know it's kind of hard to see. Alright, so now with this one, we're just gonna pull it through onto the other side. Here on the back, we're just gonna press down on it. Then we're just gonna take it. This little wire end doesn't touch. There's like a tiny little gap, so I don't have to put it through. I can just kind of pull it underneath it, if you know what I mean. You can just push it under there. And now we're just gonna trim. And that little tiny wire end that's sticking up there, we're just gonna push that down and push it under here as well, so it's kind of hidden by this wire coming around. So the wire ends are kind of hidden away. And now this got all discombobulated. So you could actually, like if you have a hard time straightening it out, you can have it go not perfectly this way. Or if you want to straighten it out, you can just go ahead and do that with your pliers here. All right. So that is it. That is my little seed bead ring. So I thought it'd be fun to show you what it looks like with just a single bead, just for comparison. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the little seed beads so that I can show that to you. Here is my little round bead, and I'm going to just be attaching it in the same way by putting each little wire end around the washer on each side here. So I'm just going to do this exactly how I did it with the seed beads. So I'll go ahead and finish that up off camera. Alright, so here it is with that little bead. It's just the same exact attachment. You can see the underside there. So here's what it looks like with a little bead. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this project. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.